Thank you very much, Bill Nye. We should be so lucky to be that warm. All right. This item in our first of the crazy climate news of the week. Actually, a couple of viewers reached out to me via email and also on social media asking that we cover this. It was already on the list, so this is going to be great. This comes from the New York Post. Now there might be a new ice age after all we've heard. Headline is climate scientists claim Gulf Stream could be near collapse, predicting a new ice age. I'll read a bit for you. A key Atlantic current could be pushed to the brink of collapse within decades, supposedly ushering in a new ice age and dramatically raising sea levels, climate scientists have claimed in a controversial new study published in the journal Communications, Earth, and Environment. Per the new findings, the at-risk current in question is the Atlantic Meridional, thank you, overturning circulation, or AMOC. We'll stick with that. A, quote, conveyor belt of the ocean that funnels warm water toward the ocean surface from the tropics into the northern hemisphere. The study stated that the source of this marine temperature regulator, the Greenland ice sheet, is being thawed amid warming temperatures, causing meltwater runoff to leach into the North Atlantic, leading to stagnation. This has resulted in, quote, a distinctive temperature fingerprint located some 3,280 to 6,560 feet below the ocean surface, according to reporting by the Daily Mail. Quote, here we identify a distinctive temperature fingerprint in the equatorial Atlantic that signals the AMOC change, the authors wrote. The robust physical mechanism and reliable detection make this fingerprint a valuable metric for AMOC monitoring in a warming climate. The presence of the marine hot pocket appears to suggest that the current slowdown has been occurring for decades and could foment a total decline before the end of the century, per the study. Now, I want to start with you here, Anthony. This is really something. The climate panic industrial complex likes to pretend that they didn't warn of an impending ice age back in the 1970s, but they did. They did. And the UN Secretary General just a few months ago was warning us about global boiling and even said the oceans are boiling. And now here we have a study that they call controversial, but it's basically the plot to the movie The Day After Tomorrow. And that's science fiction, not science.
Yeah, I shake my head every time I see one of these things because it's the same crap over and over and over again. You know, it's just another modeling study. And this one, is saying the jet stream's going to collapse, or the Gulf Stream's going to collapse, and everything's going to go cold. Then we've had people saying the Gulf Stream is strengthening. Then we've had people saying the Gulf Stream hasn't changed at all. Nobody can get this shit together on this particular topic. They are all over the map, literally. And so, take all of this with not even a grain of salt, just flat out reject it. It's garbage because it's a modeling study. And a modeling study doesn't mean anything. The outcome is whatever they want it to be, tweak their little dials, and you end up with something that looks like they can grab headlines. And that's what this is. This is nothing but a headline grabber, obviously, by where it's at. And so there's no panic, there's no collapse, and this whole thing is following the script of the terrible movie, the Day After Tomorrow. That saw the Gulf Stream collapse and giant cold fronts sweep in and freeze people in their tracks, and freeze the library in New York where Jake Gyllenhaal and his girlfriend are holed up. It's just junk. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah. The Post was two interesting things about the Post. If you want to put something in bold, it's claim in the headline. And I think it was, did they say could or possibly or something like that as well? Look, the sun could stop spinning, could stop being the center of the universe tomorrow. It could blink her out. A black hole could suck us all in next week. Lots of things could and possibly happen. This is as well grounded as the old idea that the moon is made of cheese. Anthony says take it with a pinch of salt. I say throw the whole salt shaker at it. You've got two studies published in also peer-reviewed journals earlier this year, I think January and March, that said just the opposite. That said the Gulf Stream was stable or increasing. Every new study says something different. It's increasing, and that's a sign of climate change. It's decreasing, and that's caused by climate change. In either case, it's disaster for us. And for me, the main problem is, how long have we been able to study and measure the Gulf Stream? Were we measuring this 200 years ago? No. Were we measuring it 70 years ago? No. We've only been measuring it, and that distinctive footprint, the fingerprint that they talk about, how long have they been studying the distinctive fingerprint that we know can serve as a proxy for everything else that we've never understood or known about before, but now we can be quite certain that this one thing that we've identified somehow as a distinctive fingerprint proves that the AMOC is about to collapse. Look, this is a little studied, or not, I should say, not long studied ocean circulation pattern. We haven't known about ocean circulation patterns for 200 years, or probably even 100 years, certainly not 150 years. We haven't been able to track them for even a shorter time than that. And we haven't had the computer models to spin out various scenarios for even a shorter time than that. There is not no evidence. There is conflicting evidence as to what's going on with the AMOC, and it may not be changing at all. They say, well, the last time this happened was during the past ice age. I'm sorry, were they measuring the ocean currents during the last ice age? Do we know that it wasn't circulating during the last ice age? I don't think we do. I don't think we have proxy data that shows that we have proxy data for an ocean current. It is all fear mongering.
Yeah.
They are selling fear. They are selling more funding for their research. They are selling more power for them to dictate our lives. But what they're not selling is scientifically valid research.
Yeah, Chris, you've been hitting this a couple times on X this week, so I'm sure you have something to say.
Yeah, this whole scare story is interesting because it flip-flops every few months. And as Sterling mentioned, there's a million different studies out there on this, and they all come to opposite conclusions. So when people claim, people that like scientific consensus, they think that it's the greatest thing since sliced bread. But this issue particularly, there's no consensus on this issue. And there's been some studies that have suggested that the AMOC is weakening, such as Kaiser et al. 2018 and Kaiser et al. 2021, which found that there's been a 15 to 20% weakening in the AMOC. And I think they're proxy for it because they don't really measure the actual AMOC. They've used different proxies for it. And they looked at subpolar North Atlantic sea surface temperature anomalies, which have, they show a distinct cooling pattern. And they say that that's what's weakening. Yet, there's other studies. There's one that was published last year, Weston et al. 2024. And they claim that the AMOC is on a tipping course. It's on a tipping point course. It's going to shut down completely. But in the study, they admit in the abstract that there has been no such shutdown observed even in paleoclimate records. The AMOC has shut down, has slowed down rather. And even that might have been some of the cause of the Little Ice Age after the medieval warm period, because it's a natural process that the speed does fluctuate. When it gets a little too warm, you get some meltwater flux, and then the current slows down, and Europe cools, and the northern hemisphere cools. That's been observed in paleoclimate records, but there's never been an actual shutdown of it that we know of. And in order to get the AMOC to shut down in their model in that study, they had to impose a strong freshwater forcing that was greater than when the ice sheet covering North America melted at the end of the last glacial maximum, which translated to about 6 centimeter per year sea level rise rate, which is completely unrealistic, even under the high emissions RCP 8.5 scenario. And then also, they had to run the model for 1,700 years in order to get it to actually shut down. So this is just pseudoscience is what it is. And even the IPCC states that with medium confidence that a shutdown by 2100 is pretty unlikely to happen. And as for the Ice Age scare of the 1970s, I mentioned this, and I got a bunch of comments from people coming at me saying that, oh, it was never an Ice Age scare in the 1970s. Most of the papers were publishing about global warming. But yet, and while that's probably true, it's important to note, as Anthony can attest to
It's
this,
not probably true. I lived through it.
Well, listen, the scientific literature probably didn't talk about it, but there was a ton of media coverage about it based on a handful of studies. And the average person is not going to go to a scientist. They're going to read the media headlines. And the Ice Age scare was very much real in the 1970s and even 1960s. And it was media driven.
Let me interrupt there. First off, some of the prominent advocates of climate alarm, like Steve Schneider and John.
Yeah,
Holden,
there was a paper about that, 1971.
It was in their book. They wrote it in their book. Now, these were
Yeah,
not nobodies. These were prominent advocates that said, yeah, we had a little ice age there. And I would also like to say, it wasn't until very, very recent history that anyone thought the ocean currents were behind ice ages. For the vast majority of the time we've been studying them, they talked about Milankovitch cycles, large cycles that didn't have to do with ocean currents causing the ice age. So let's say the AMOC shuts down, but we don't have a new Milankovitch cycle. We don't get the ice age that we may get a cooling. We may get some ice expansion, but we don't get glaciers down through Wisconsin, and we certainly don't get them on the Atlantic coast in the space of 48 hours, as the movie showed. You know, there's the Earth, ocean cycles are complex. Atmospheric chemistry and its interactions with solar winds, cosmic rays, all the other things are complex. Clouds are complex. Well, ice ages are complex. There's not a uniform, a unilateral single cause of deep ice ages, and certainly not one that's tied directly to the AMOC outside of any climate model.
Yeah.
I'd like to point out that we have a Climate at a Glance article that addresses this issue. Basically, the Climate at a Glance article shows that we have all of these ocean currents and all these studies, and it's been flipping and flopping back and forth for the last 20 years. And the bottom line is that there's no consensus on this. Not that consensus is important. There's just really no proof that it's going to go one way or the other. And Chris made an excellent point in that the paleo climate record shows no indication of any kind of a shutdown in any of these ocean currents. And so it's just not plausible. It's just another modeling scare tactic. The only thing I think that could possibly shut down these ocean currents would be chemtrails.
Oh no!
Don't start that, Anthony.
You
But
just
hold on. I don't know.
I'm joking, of course.
I don't know how the paleo climate record could show anything about currents, ocean currents.
Well, it has to do with depositions of sediments and things like that.
I understand you have waxing and waning of coastlines. You have shells that show up in one place in the past, but that doesn't mean they were deposited there by currents. So I just, I think that's poor proxy if they're saying, oh, well, some shells here show that the current shut down as opposed to continental drift, or once the land was cleared, oysters started showing up there, as opposed to being deposited there. I think we can say nothing about currents. In geologic time.
Yeah. Well, I get from the private chat here that the audio for Chris has apparently gone out, so he can't hear us, which is actually a good thing considering when Anthony Watch just dropped there for a minute ago. So that would have triggered him. So it dropped at the right time.